This is Democracy Watch. Mark, I've gotten this question more than any other question, especially in light of how poorly JD Vance seems to the general electorate right now. Can Donald Trump have JD Vance replaced? Are there any rules that prevent choosing a new VP candidate after they're officially nominated at their convention?
I mean, this guy has had the worst rollout of any candidate ever. I don't even just mean vice presidential candidate.
Yeah.
I mean, it is hard to imagine a worse pick for Donald Trump, who has done worse as his initial impression. I mean, let's set aside the fact that his policies are bonkers and the fact that he is attacking women who have cats. I don't even want to talk about what if you search on Twitter these days, you find about JD Vance.
Yeah.
But no, there's no way to get him off the ballot. There may not even be a way to get him off the couch. Okay, but let's just stick with the ballot. Like, he is now the Republican nominee for Vice President of the United States. That paperwork the Republican National Committee has submitted to the states, he's on the ballot. Now, if he died or if he was incapacitated, some states allow for there to be a swapping out. There are some states that would say, that even if he just turned out to be a total embarrassment and withdrew, he could be replaced. But Donald Trump has no more power to kick him off. Like they are stuck with this guy, and I'm pretty sure that he's not leaving the ballot or the couch.
Well, what if, for example, just to game this out for
You're
a
just
moment,
not going to react to that.
to the couch. I will abstain from reacting to the narrative about what JD Vance may or may not have done with his couch. That's between you know what? I'm firm on this position. What happens between that man and his couch is up to him and his couch, and I, unlike Republicans, don't want to get in between any sexual fantasies between a man and his loved ones. I'll leave it at that. That's my diplomatic response. Just to game this out for a moment, what if JD Vance himself seeks to step aside, to drop out?
Yeah, like I said, then you get into this matrix of time and reason, right? So the earlier he decided to drop out, the more likely it is that some states would allow him to drop out and be replaced. It obviously gets progressively harder as you get closer to the election because ballots get printed, ballots get sent out, right? And so one of the things is when does it happen? The other question is, what's the reason for it happening, right? At one end of the spectrum, if he dies, and, I hope he doesn't. I mean that seriously. I don't wish any ill on him. But, if a candidate dies, then a lot of states have permissive rules in that circumstances. Someplace below that is incapacitated. And below that is just I feel like I'm a laughing stock and I no longer wish to run. Fewer states, right? Because it is a burden to the state after the candidates have been certified and the ballots have started to be printed. Now, in fairness, the Democratic National Convention hasn't taken place yet, so they have not yet had to submit their nominee. So ballots haven't yet started being printed. But JD Vance, so I'm going to give you this advice. You're really not popular. And there's probably nothing you can do about that, but just sit on a straight back chair. That's my advice.
That's good advice. Do you think that Donald Trump at this point regrets choosing JD Vance as his running mate?
Oh, he definitely regrets choosing JD Vance as his running mate for two reasons. First of all, Donald Trump only chose JD Vance because he thought he was running against Joe Biden, right? Let's just take all of the sort of fun out of this and just look at this as a straight analytical matter. He thought JD Vance was the right matchup when he was running against Joe Biden. JD Vance makes no sense where he is running against Kamala Harris. I mean, Kamala Harris is a much more, and this is not a knock on President Biden, by the way. He's been a great president, but Kamala Harris has a much broader range of skills in terms of public speaking and prosecuting the case against Donald Trump. And so if Donald Trump knew that this was going to be Harris, almost certainly he would have picked someone who would be a more effective speaker. I mean, JD Vance is not a compelling speaker. He is not a compelling deliverer of a message, and he runs very hard to the right. So I think he regrets that. The second thing, really quickly, Brian, is that Donald Trump doesn't like to be upstaged. Donald Trump, if there's going to be a scandal, he wants it to be about him, right? He doesn't want anyone else taking the limelight. And I'm sure he's very unhappy right now. One thing Mike Pence was good about doing is he'd get a fly on his head, but he'd otherwise blend into the backdrop. And JD Vance is right now not doing that.
Man, whoever would have guessed that Donald Trump would have regret over not choosing Doug Burgum at this point.
Right? Yeah.
Now, far from being a boon to the ticket, do you think that Vance actually drags Trump down, considering he won Ohio, his own state, by a smaller margin than Donald Trump himself did?
Oh yeah, there's no question he's going to drag Trump down. I actually think they probably assumed that when they were running against Biden, that this was not a candidate who is going to be accretive in the vote share, right? I mean, he is running. JD Vance is an unpopular figure in an unpopular party. And so he was never going to add a state. He was never going to add a new segment of voters. But I think they thought they had that room. They now don't have that room, right? They are now running neck and neck with Vice President Harris. Donald Trump, by the time this weekend's over, maybe trailing Kamala Harris in some of the critical swing states. And JD Vance is an anathema to that key block in the middle. He is also extremely motivating of younger voters and voters on the left who have to be motivated.
Yeah. And by the way, to all of those points, you've been hitting those hard in Democracy Docket, which is the free news outlet Marc founded to focus on everything voting and elections. So for those watching right now, to support the work that Marc and his team are doing, and also to get a raft of good information on a daily basis, please make sure to sign up. I'll put the link right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. Marc, Vance has actually called for outright ending abortion and has even entertained the idea of banning interstate travel for women seeking reproductive care in other states. How do you think that that's going to play in battleground states? And just as a piggyback to that, can you talk about the constitutionality of this effort by Republicans to advocate for the banning of interstate travel?
Right. So as you know, by your question, that is actually directly spoken in the Constitution that you cannot do. Right. So the right to interstate travel is one of the rights guaranteed in the Constitution in its plain text. So that's a non-starter. But the fact that he thinks that is a political winner for him just tells you how bad his judgment is. And let's remember here, Brian, he is a senator from Ohio. What have we been talking about happening in Ohio? A ballot initiative on abortion, right? Where Republicans are losing that ballot. Like they have systematically been losing on the issue of abortion in Ohio. I mean, forget about in the swing states. JD Vance's position is on the deep defensive in his home state, and it is extremely unpopular elsewhere. And like I said, that is just the tip of the iceberg of the nonsense and crazy extreme positions he advocates.
Yeah. Marc, why do you think the fact that Donald Trump tried to have his last vice president killed doesn't seem to matter to this long line of supplicants who were vying for his VP spot?
Look, I mean, it has occurred to me that maybe the reason why he chose JD Vance is because, like, his last vice president not just defied him, but objected to being potentially murdered. And maybe Vance has made some assurances like, look, boss, if it comes to it, do what you got to do. I mean, I don't know. But it is a remarkable thing that JD Vance was a senator. And, that's not a bad gig, by the way, right? You get run around, you get called senator, right? And he decided to trade that in for a job that, let's just say, the actuarial tables don't really favor when it comes to the top of the ticket thinking highly of you in the cases of a failed election. So, I think that he is willing to humiliate himself for sure. And I have no idea what motivates him to do it.
Well, on the humiliation front, I think that we're just seeing the beginning of that, and I'll harken back to the couch saga, the dolphin saga. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then either don't look this stuff up or do.
You really don't want to look this up, guys.
All right, well, with that said, Marc and I will continue to stay on top of this stuff as it continues to play itself out, for better or worse, when it comes to JD Vance. Again, for those watching right now, to support the invaluable work that Marc and his team are doing, please make sure to sign up for Democracy Docket. I'll put the link right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
I'm Marc Elias.
This is Democracy Watch.